You're on mute. Ooh, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
I love it when that happens.
Hey, we're rusty. We're rusty.
It's been a month, which is what I was saying. I was going through all these motions, and there was absolutely no audio coming out of my mouth. But
all right, start from the top again. Let's go.
Yeah, I am Tony Altieri. That is Rico Mukherjee, and like we said, we're out of practice. It's been a month, Rick. No golf, but we've got our first, I guess you can call it, real tournament. We had some swing season mini event things going on, like the Hero and a couple like team events, but nothing that really. I guess would say for me and you, like, gets our juices going. And this is a nice little appetizer to the PGA season that is about to start.
Yeah, I like it. I had a winner here last year with Cam Smith. I'll be honest, man. December was pretty boring when it comes to golf. I mean, it was fun watching Tiger Woods play, but even with that, I didn't even really watch much. I didn't watch any of the PNC. I didn't watch much of the Hero World Challenge. And but we're back, man. Golf season is where it's at. I'm tired of losing money in the NFL. That's what it's been for the last month and a half to 2 months, and I've needed golf back in my life because it's the only one damn sport that I'm actually good at when it comes to betting and handicapping. So I'm excited.
To your point, we ended the year pretty strong. The last few, I think, 5-6 swing events that were actually full field events, including the CJ Cup and, to your point, a couple other mitigated fields. We hit a few winners to end the stretch. It actually ended up being a positive year for me because I ended up hitting 3 winners like in the last 6 or 7 tournaments. So from a betting perspective, it ended up being basically a break-even year for me. So I'm happy with that. DFS was very, very good to me this year. I'm not going to lie. I had a very good DFS season, and I feel fired up to get into the new one, man.
Me too, man. It's one of those things where I feel like we've been doing this now for a long time, so we have a process, and I'm pretty confident in saying that our process works because it seems like we do pretty good in DFS, and we seem to hit winners on the show. And I mean, hopefully we carry it into this year because golf season is my favorite, man. I love having a tournament every week. I could care less about who's playing on Live, who's playing on the PGA Tour. If there's a full field event on the PGA Tour, I'm going to be playing DFS and I'm going to be betting on it. So it's exciting.
It is. It's funny because for the first time, basically in my quote unquote betting DFS career, I got into the NFL. I was betting parlays, which, as you know, can be a fickle market. There's nothing worse than winning 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 games and then just watching everything fold in on itself in the last game, which is basically what happened to me this Sunday. I had 3 parlays that were live with 3 afternoon games, and it didn't go the way that I had hoped. Thank you, Minnesota Vikings. Thank you, New York Jets. Appreciate that. But I mean, it is so hard. And to your point, like, we've got a process, we have statistical information, we can look historically, all of these trends and data. Like, we have the ability to at least arm ourselves with enough information to have an educated guess and give ourselves an edge in the markets and in DFS. And to your point, like, I love it. It's so much fun. We've been doing it now for a while. Process is working. It's been proven. We've had success 2 years in a row now. And here we go, dude. We're getting ready to kick off another season, and it starts with the Sentry Tournament of Champions. It is an abbreviated 40-man field, which is cut down to 39 this week because Rory McIlroy has decided not to play into the tournament. There are some scheduling changes and different rules this year about what guys can play and what they must play. Rory being the prime example, him not playing this week, he is now forced to play in all of the other elevated field events, which I think there are like 3 or 4 this year. And I don't know what the or else is, though. It's not like they're going to suspend Rory or they're going to dock his pay. So I don't know what punishment he gets if he doesn't play in, the Travelers Championships or the Wyndham or whatever the other 3 events are.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously not going to do anything like major or anything like that. It might give him a slap on the wrist, but I don't see why he wouldn't want to play in the other elevated events. I mean, the purses this year are going to be ridiculous. It's like $20 million purse at the I don't know, whatever, the Heritage or something like that, which is ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. He usually has. I don't really ever remember Rory playing in the Tournament of Champions. So he's this is the time of the year where he takes a break and he gets it into full gear, probably at Torrey and then moving forward after that. So yeah, I mean, it's an exciting event. I think it was supposed to be 41 people, but Rory and Shane Lowry are the two people that were eligible for this event that are not playing. So we got 39 players in the field. DraftKings pricing came out last week, so I've been kind of looking at it here and there. But yeah, man, it's a fun event, especially for us in California, because it's like prime time kind of time period when it comes to golf. Like it's like in the early evening time for us. So um beautiful course, beautiful views in Hawaii, and I'm excited, man. It's the Hawaii swing is always a fun little kickoff for the year, because we usually tend to hit winners unless they're Russell Henley.
Yeah, absolutely. Which you and I both watched him. I watched the replay of that event, which is obviously next week to Sony. I mean, watching him, and it wasn't like he totally gagged it away. I mean, Hideki walked him, dude. I mean, he walked him.
He was up. He was up 5 strokes.
5 strokes through, yeah, with 9 holes to play, and Hideki walked him. And that 3-wood that Hideki hit in the playoff was the most epic 3-wood of all time. Like, I mean, dude. And the best part about it is he hits it, and then he turns around immediately to the caddy. He's like, is it good? Like, he has no idea. And then the crowd just erupts because he hit it to like 4 feet.
Yeah, man. I was so excited. I was like, oh, man, I hit Cam Smith in the TOC, and now I hit Henley at the Sony. And I was like, oh, God. Now I remember why I hate betting golf sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's a fickle woman, golf betting, because you can have everything in hand. And the one thing that has happened is I built up quite a bit of scar tissue over time. Is it's like when I have a guy who's winning on Sunday, I'm like, how is this going to collapse? I'm not even like stoked that he's winning. I'm just like, okay, great. He's sleeping on the 54-hole lead. Like, he's going to go out and shoot +9 tomorrow. Like, I just know it's going to happen. So, you know, it is one of those things, but I do love it, to your point. And before we get into the course preview in the tournament, I do want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. We've got continuing Buffalo Bills content coming out. You know, Mike and Jake do a great job of doing all the Bills games, and we're getting into, you know, crunch time. The Bills have a big one tonight, Monday night, as we're recording this, against the Bengals. Massive implications for who has first place and home field advantage throughout the NFL playoffs. And of course, the guys will continue to do their post-game breakdown tonight. I believe it's at midnight Eastern. So if you're on the West Coast, not too bad. If you're on the East Coast, I don't know why you'd be watching a podcast at midnight, but you need to get a life. Anyways, the guys will be going live at midnight. And we'll continue to have, you know, fantasy football stuff here and there. It's kind of a weird time, Rick. Like, basically all the fantasy football is gone. Yeah, but over. I know you and Chris kind of continue to stay engaged in what's happening. There's also DFS, so you know we'll keep you abreast of everything that's happening. So subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in this video, and we'll be sure to comment back to you. So with all that being said, Rick, like, we've got quite a nice little tournament lined up this week. We mentioned it. There are roughly 40 guys in this tournament, 2 guys out, as you had mentioned, Lowry and McIlroy not playing this week. But, you know, this is a fun course because it has massive fairways and massive greens. I think both are calculated as the largest on the PGA Tour in terms of versus the other courses they play throughout the year. So it's not that it's a hit and giggle, but you hit a good ball off the tee and you get it to 100 yards and you try to just stalk pins with wedges. Like, that's what seems to translate to success. Last year, as you and I were talking about this, Cam Smith, Matt Jones, and John Rahm went nuclear and all shot 30 under or better. Cam Smith won it at 34 under. But guess what? He's not here to defend his championship because he's making he's making millions of dollars on the Live Tour. So we're left with the ashes of Cam Smith. But we do have, I guess, inarguably one of the best fields of the year outside of the majors. We've got the top 30 or 40 guys. One big change this year compared to other years, and it really started with the COVID years. They've now allowed all the guys who played in the Tour Championship to contend and play in this tournament. So the field goes from what was traditionally 20 guys up to 40. And here we are, Rick. Top of the board this week on the DraftKings pricing. Obviously, we mentioned it, Rory McIlroy, a withdraw. But Scotty Scheffler at 10-3, all the way down to Matthew Fitzpatrick at 9,100. We've got a condensed field, so we've got a condensed slide this week. When we look at this above $9,000, it's basically the who's who of golf, minus McIlroy. But Who do you like at the top of the board? And probably the better question, because it's something that we seem to get into everything we talk about these tournaments, is lineup construction. Like, where do you think people are going to pool? It's very, very early on a Monday, so a lot of the indicators that we have, the tools that we tap into, those really won't start to get more accurate until late Tuesday, even into early Wednesday, before we have a good idea of where most people are kind of building lineups. But I mean, what's your first take? Do you think people are going to go like Rom and Scheffler, or do you think they're just going to build lineups that are a little more balanced, like in the 8 and 9Ks?
I'm not sure, but I just wanted to say, like, if you are new to the show, new to the channel, new to DFS or anything, like, this is primarily a DFS show. So just in case if you like don't understand what we're talking about, when we're talking about ownership, we're talking about who we think are going to be highly owned players on DraftKings and like the main $20 event or whatever. And when we say we like to pivot off the chalk, we mean like if someone is going to be highly owned, maybe someone who's going to be lower owned is going to be a better play because they might be equivalent in talent, but with lower ownership, that's the kind of guys who you're looking for to win a GPP on DraftKings. So that's just a little like if you're just kind of new to our channel. But I do have early Monday ownership projections, or going in for the Tournament of Champions. But it's looking like from 9K and above, the lower owned people are going to be Colin Morikawa and Matthew Fitzpatrick at 9,400 and 9,100. I'm not really sure why. It's tough to say why, but not many people are flocking towards those two guys. Maybe because Colin Morikawa had a bad season last year, quote unquote bad seasons. He didn't have any wins. Matthew Fitzpatrick has never ever played a round in Hawaii in his PGA Tour career. I'm sure that's why people are not going towards those two guys, but they're good players, man. Colin Morikawa, he's going to drive the ball in the fairway. He's going to hit irons, and he just needs to make a couple putts, and he's right there in contention. So I'm not really sure why they're coming in as a low own right now. Things could obviously change. It's a Monday, but as of now, those are the pivot plays. As far as overwhelming chalk, I don't think it's going to be anybody's surprise here, but it's going to be John Rahm. This guy has pretty much dominated at this course for the last 5 years. Nothing but top 10 finishes, a couple runner-ups. He's basically done everything but win this tournament. So he's going to be the overwhelming chalk here. I don't mind pivoting off of John Rahm to either Scotty Scheffler or Justin Thomas right above or right below him. I'd probably lean towards more towards Justin Thomas just because he also has dominated at this course with nothing but top 5 finishes for the last 5 years, including a win and 2 third-place finishes. So I definitely like Justin Thomas right here. I know the other sexy pickup here is going to be Xander, just because he's pretty good at this course too, with a win and a runner-up finish in the past. But I think my favorite play, and this is going to be probably a recurring theme on our show this year, is going to be Mr. Tony Finau at 9,300. I think he has overcome that hurdle that he had before in not being able to win golf tournaments. This guy is now, I think, turned into a proven winner. I think he can beat the best fields in the world. I think he is just, one of the best players, like top 5, top 10 player in the world. But yeah, for me, 9,300, Tony Finau, lock and load. He's going to be my favorite play. I would not mind starting your lineup, Justin Thomas, Tony Finau. That's a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. You mentioned off the jump that, Morikawa and Fitzpatrick are the two guys that are coming in at the lowest ownership. When you look historically at this course, I think people tend to think, it is a par 73. It's over 7,400 yards. So they think, oh, you got to be a bomber off the tee. And the reality is you don't. Very similar to Augusta National and to TPC Deer Run. Like, even though they're longer courses, everybody is going to hit the ball a long way. Everybody's going to hit driver. And so you're going to get a lot of roll. And we've seen guys like, Zach Johnson and Steve Stricker and Jordan Spieth like have success and win in this tournament over time. And not that Spieth is by any means a short hitter, but he's also not one of the bombers. And so I think a lot of people are really going to look at guys off the tee and pick guys who are driving the ball consistently, into what I would call like the top 5 in driving distance, because they want that length on this course. The reality is you hit the ball to up 100 to 125 yards, and it's like we talked about, it is a wedge fest. And so it really brings a lot of guys into play here. But I would say this, I think that you're making a mistake. And when I say you, people are making a mistake if you fade this range completely. Like if you're only going to take one of these guys, because this is where the winners tend to come from in this tournament. They come from the top of the board. They're coming from guys who consistently finish in top tens and majors. And I do think that you're going to have to skew your lineups to include one, if not two, of these players into your lineups. It's unavoidable.
These guys are the best players in the world. I mean, there's nothing else to say about that. Sans Rory McIlroy and I guess Cam Smith. I guess you could make arguments for those. I mean, obviously Rory's one of the best players in the world. Cam Smith is on a different tour, so these are the best players in the world. If you fade this entire range and start below this range, that's just not. There's too much. You're leaving too much win equity up here, especially 100%. with guys that have won this tournament in the past, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele. So yeah, I mean that would be dumb to fade this range. I would in a no cut event where you get 4 rounds out of all your players, I'd lean more towards just jamming these guys in and then playing scrubs at the bottom. So stars and scrubs is probably the more popular way to go, just because you're going to get 4 rounds no matter what. So I mean, I like I said, I mean, John Rahm obviously is the overwhelming chalk up there. So if you think that John Rahm had his first Christmas with 2 kids and he had a tough little break being a dad over the winter break and he's going to come in rusty or something like that, maybe you fade John Rahm. But for what it's worth, John Rahm has won 2 out of his last 5 starts overseas. He won in Spain and he won in Dubai. So he's playing good golf. So it'd be a tough sell for me to tell you to fade John Rahm. That's all.
I mean, you mentioned it. His history here is the best of anybody up top, other than maybe Justin Thomas, who has won this event twice here in the last 4 or 5 years. But I think with Thomas, you're getting a little more volatility, and with Rahm, you're getting basically a guy who consistently finishes inside the top 5 or 10 every single time at this tournament. It fits him perfectly. Very similar to what we saw when he won in Mexico last year. I mean, big, huge, wide fairways, big, huge, wide greens. I mean, it basically allows John Rahm to take advantage of all the tools that he has. And if he has even a median putting week, he walks away with the tournament. You just have to hope, if you're playing Rahm in here, that he runs away with it. And what we saw last year with the 3 guys, Rahm, Cam Smith, and Matt Jones. Yeah, if you didn't have all 3 of those guys in your DFS lineup, like you weren't sniffing money. Like you weren't even going to come close. But if you had those 3 guys, it was basically those 3 and any other combination of 3 guys, you ended up inside of basically the top 20 in every single DFS tournament that was out there. So it's honing in on the guys and then sticking to it. It doesn't mean that you could ignore chalk, because obviously, if guys are 40, 50% owned. I played in a tournament for the Hero, and I think I had Rahm in one of my lineups, and he was like 65% owned by the field. Like, that's just bad. Like, you don't, I know it's John Rahm, but you don't want to be on a guy who's owned by 65% of the field, because if he doesn't win, then you're basically your host. Like everybody else who doesn't have him as an immediate advantage over you. So
yeah.
I mean, again,
what I was going to say was, when it comes to, I mean, maybe for this tournament, it's a little bit different because it's such a small field, but in general, just in full man fields, if you're approaching anywhere like 30 to 40%, sometimes it might just be an automatic fade. I mean, it's tough to eat chalk like that. And if you're going to eat chalk like that, you got to go overweight. You have to like either go all in and lock that guy in every single one of your lineups, or just completely fade him. I just don't think there's any benefit when a guy is 30 to 40% owned to just be like, oh, he's in 30% of my lineup. So that's not really going to gain you an advantage or on the field. So in this tournament, it's a little bit different. I mean, what I'm looking at right now, John Rahm, he's the chalkiest guy on the board. He's coming in at like 38%. Compare that to like a full field event, it might be like 28% or 29%, maybe like knock off like 10% for a full man field. So, I mean, yes, it's chalky, but I can't blame you. I mean, like, who's your favorite player up here? Like, it's got to be John Rahm. Like he's got to be like the guy who you like look at these guys. It's like, oh, that's the guy I'm going to play, right?
He makes the total sense, but I'll be honest with you. Actually, Bills fan CA chimed in about Scotty Scheffler. Like, I really like Scotty Scheffler's form coming in. Like, John Rahm should win this week. That's why he's priced at 6.5 or 7-1 in the betting market. We'll get into bets at the end of the show, just at least go through the board and throw out some names for guys we like. But him and Justin Thomas, like, to me, you have just as much overall win equity as Rahm. So, if I can get him, to your point, if I can get those guys that 10% less, or in some instances, depending on the tournaments that you're playing, half of the ownership of John Rahm, like, to your point, you have to make that move, or John Rahm is in 100% of your lineups. That is the only way to approach him. So for me, I like Scheffler and Thomas a lot, both of those guys. And then, like you, I love Finau down there. I have a feeling Finau is going to continue to gain steam. And if you want to be tricky, to your point, like, you just got to hope Morikawa has that week where he putts okay. He's just he putted so bad. I mean, him and Scotty Scheffler, even though Scheffler had some really good finishes, both guys were abysmal putters last year. I mean,
if Scotty Scheffler, if he putted like to the field last year towards the second half of the year, he would have won like 5 more tournaments. He just his ball striking and everything else is just so immaculate that his putter let him down. I mean, same thing with Colin Morikawa. I mean, we always talk about his short game being bad. It's pretty bad. Like, he can't putt. He's not a good chipper, but tee to green, he's one of the best players in the world. So, I mean, just one of those tournaments where you need him to gain 2 strokes on the field putting, and he's going to be in the top 5 or possibly win the tournament.
Yeah, the other guy that we did not mention that's on here that also has immaculate course history is Patrick Cantlay. He's never won here, but I mean, he's got a number of like top 10 finishes. This is a course that fits his game well. You mentioned it with Morikawa, like Patrick Cantlay is a tee to green beast. He just hits fairways and greens, and when he putts well, he wins tournaments. And again, I guess you can apply that label to every single one of these guys.
That's true.
But it's just one of those. For me, it's Scheffler and Thomas. I like Finau as well. But I understand if you go Rahm, and he would, in one and done, Rahm is my pick this week. I just think he provides you with the most equity in terms of what should happen. Like, the most likely outcome is John Rahm wins this tournament. So I fully get it. This next range is actually where I have some guys that I really like, both in the DFS market and on the betting card. So we've got some interesting plays here. Some folks that we haven't seen in quite a long time. Will Zalatoris right off the jump at 8,900. Pretty interesting. We haven't seen him since basically he got injured and missed the whole second half of the season. Some other guys, Tom Kim, who was very, very hot. Victor Hovland, who just won the Hero. Sam Burns, who kind of grenaded this back half of the season after having a very strong first half. Jordan Spieth, who kind of got his game together off the tee, won a tournament this year. Hideki, who, I don't know, like, I don't know what happened to Hideki. I still feel like he's one of the best players on the planet, but he has definitely not played like that over the course of the last, 8 or 9 months. And then all the way down, your boy Brian Harman, who statistically rates out phenomenally. One thing I didn't mention, the overall rankings, stat rankings, tournament history, and form rankings. These are based off of my model that I'm pulling through Fantasy National. It takes in and churns all the metrics through the course of the season. I weight different things more heavily, and it spits out who rates out the best. And that is the overall ranking. And you can see your boy Frodo, number 3 in the model. But again, it scares the crap out of me because I feel like everybody, when they run their metrics, are going to see him pop, and everybody's going to think it's a sneaky play.
It doesn't scare me at all. I'm gonna lock and load Brian Harman in this event.
God, I hate that guy. God, I hate Brian Harman.
Good course history. He hasn't played this event in a while. I don't think he's played it since 2018, so it's been a few years since he played. But his last 2 events on tour have been back-to-back runner-up finishes during the swing season. Guy's been playing phenomenal golf. He's $8,000, and he's going to be a nice little pivot because he's not coming in that chalky off of a chalky like Sungjae in this range, who's coming in the highest owned. Because, Sungjae, great course history. Last 2 years have been an 8th and a 5th place finish. He's been playing pretty good golf his last few times out on tour. That's going to be the obvious chalk for me. I'm probably just going to fade Sungjae just because, chalky Sungjae, when there's guys in this range who I prefer more at less ownership. I'm just gonna bite the bullet, and if Sungjae beats me, he beats me. But yeah, man, Brian Harman at 8,000 coming in like semi low owned, and even Hideki right above him. You talked about his form has been pretty bad recently, but before, like back in the day, like a few years ago, Hideki was the man at this tournament. Like, he was like the guy that like had a runner-up finish like multiple times or something like that. I think he almost he won it one year. No, maybe he didn't win it one year, but he's definitely owned this course in the past. past. He is coming in overwhelmingly the lowest owned in this range. I'm seeing right now 7.9%, and then Will Zalatoris at 9.2%. So those guys are the two pivots here. And if you're going to give me a low owned Hideki at 8,100 at a course that he has played well at, I mean, we know he plays well in Hawaii in general. He won the Sony last year. I think I'm going to fire that up in my lineups here. So I do like the pivots at the bottom with Hideki and Brian Harman. At the top, I don't know, man. It's a for me. I mean, we already know how much I love Will Zalatoris. I mean, this guy's been in my staple in my lineups for a couple years now, but I just don't know where his game's at right now. Coming off of whatever he had, a back injury, and hasn't played golf in a while. I mean, I'm sure he's not just been sitting around. I'm sure he's been practicing and stuff like that. But
hopefully he's been on the putting green a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully he's been on the putting green after messing with his putting stroke pretty hard last year. He did seem to get it under control and was making putts towards the end of the season before he got hurt. But I'm just gonna roll Cam Young and Tom Kim. I mean, these are my guys. I mean, they've been staples in my life. Cam Young, I just literally play every single week. Tom Kim is probably underpriced to be honest with you at 8,700. He probably doesn't deserve to be 8,700, but there's so much power like at the top that they're not going to price him in the 9K range. But we saw tournaments last year where Tom Kim was in the 9Ks and 10Ks easily, and he deserves to be there. He won multiple times last year. He's a great golfer. He's young. He's ready. He's hungry. He's ready to take the tour by storm. I think he's going to be due for a couple wins this year, maybe even a major championship, maybe even a players championship, something like that. He's going to win a big event this year, and this might be a little start to the season, winning the tournament champion. So for me, the pivots here, I like Hideki and Brian Harman at the bottom, and I definitely like Cam Young and Tom Kim at the top. The middle guys there, I mean, I'm not really too keen on anyone. Maybe a little Victor Hovland. He's obviously coming off a win in the Bahamas at the Hero, but Victor Hovland, he's one of those guys that everyone loves except me. Like, I feel like everybody on the planet loves him and thinks he's going to win multiple times, but I just never really get there with him. I need to see him win like a tournament like on mainland USA. He never wins a tournament on mainland USA. So, and I guess this isn't on mainland USA. This is in Hawaii.
We are on an island in Hawaii.
Yeah. So maybe he'll play well, but I don't really know, man. You got for that middle range right there from Max Homa to Jordan Spieth, you're gonna have to sell me on somebody because I don't really like any of those guys this week.
Yeah, Hovland's probably for me my favorite guy in the range for all the things that you mentioned. He basically chipped his way out of this tournament as hard as it is to believe of that. Like we talked about, this is an absolute birdie fest where the score is probably going to be in the high 20s, maybe even in the 30s again in terms of the winning score. And so the fact that he was chipping from off the green and, basically struggling to make par and bogeying holes, like that's not good. But, vintage Victor Hovland, hitting fairways, he's the perfect combination of accuracy and power off of the tee. And when he gets his approach game working, which is typically fire, this course sets up perfectly for him, very similar to Mayakoba. So I do like Victor Hovland a lot this week. And then it's really going to come down to ownership. I think Tom Kim's a great play. He's not the longest guy off the tee, but like we talked about, you don't have to be here. You basically just have to put the ball in really good positions, and he is one of the most accurate and best wedge players, at least statistically rated on tour through what he did last year. So I love Tom Kim as well. The other guys that you mentioned, I'm really, really interested to see what happens with ownership with both Jordan Spieth and Max Homa. Max Homa to me is just one of those guys. I was buying Max Homa very, very early before other people were. I basically hit every one of his wins because I perceive him to be undervalued every single week, and he just continues to perform. He didn't have a great showing here last year. He lost almost 3 strokes putting on the greens. So you just got to hope that he has a better putting week. His ball striking was fine. He was very good off the tee. His approach was a little bit off last year, but chalk it up to, being a debutante in this tournament. So I like Homa as well too. Again, long form, but I'm going to have to see where ownership comes in. And then Spieth's the other guy. Spieth, we talked about some of those other corollary courses, Augusta National, TPC Deer Run. Those are places where Jordan Spieth has won multiple times. So if Jordan Spieth can be more similar to the guy who was the best player on the planet for, the better part of 3 years, I like the value. There's just been a lot of volatility in his game over the last 2 or 3 years, so I can understand why people want to steer clear. It's just where he's had the most problems, which has been off the tee. Again, last year he seemed to correct some of that. That's going to be mitigated here because the fairways are massive. So I'm interested to see where Jordan goes. I can't get back on Hideki until I see him actually like put something together. Again, he won the Sony last year. So that's after, finishing basically dead last in this tournament last year. So who knows? Hideki could come in here and, to your point, be the guy who, had 3 top 5 finishes in his 3 iterations prior. So I don't really know, but for me, it's Hovland all the way. I'll have an eye on Homa and Spieth, and then I can't argue with the Cam Young piece. I'll also be watching where Zalatoris comes in. If Zalatoris is just coming in, if there's so many people that are off of him because they're scared, I might jump on just for like ownership, right? For game theory, just to do it.
Have to in that case. Right now, he's coming in. Him and like I said, him and Hideki are coming in lowest owned in this range. So if I get, you're never gonna have to sell me on a low owned Will Zalatoris in any golf tournament. He's obviously one of the best players in the world when he's healthy. We just don't know where his health is at right now. Hopefully he's fine. Because the golf sucks with that Will Zalatoris to be for me, honestly. Like when he wasn't playing, it's not enjoyable for me because I like seeing him in the field. You mentioned Max Homa. One thing about Max Homa, man, he does have baby swag right now. He just had a kid a little like a month ago or something like that. His first golf tournament after being a dad. Got to start earning those paychecks to pay for the kids. So maybe that fires him up a little bit, and he might come out with a little chip on his shoulder. Or like Max Homa doesn't need a chip on his shoulder. He's like one of those guys that like is self-motivating or whatever. But he has a kid now, so he might be a little sneaky kind of play there.
Yeah, I think we're still, it's young enough in his career. We're not sure if he's like a course guy, right? Like he's won Quail Hollow twice. He's won the Fortinet twice. Like we don't know if he's like a course beast or if he really is the kind of guy that can win anywhere. But he's won enough. I think he's won, 3 or 4 times on tour already. So I love Max Homa. We'll see where ownership ends up, but I do love the baby swag, the edge there. We're always looking for edges. So another reason for me to back Max Homa this week.
We didn't even mention Sam Burns' name. Did you notice that? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, so it's funny, dude. I was looking at Sam Burns' stuff, and dude, the back half of his year was it was terrible. Like I don't know what happened to him. Because I felt like him and Homa were on a very similar trajectory in terms of their careers and what they were going to do. And he just kind of fell apart like the back half of the year. And like the biggest thing was like the ball striking like dried up. Like he was still like putting very, very well. Even through like those bad stretches where like he missed at the Travelers and like he barely made the cut at the Scottish Open and had a poor finish at the Open. Like I guess I can kind of let that go, but like if you look at the ball striking numbers, like the CJ Cup, he loses almost 2 strokes on approach. The Sandersons, he gains 1.2, but he loses on the greens. The Tour Championship, he lost 5 strokes on approach, and he lost 4 strokes off the tee. So it's just, those ball striking trends, those are the things that make me a little leery. And I guess that's why I'm not there on him right now.
Yeah. I'd rather pay up and get Victor Hovland or pay down and get one of the guys from below him.
Yeah, it's another reason why Sungjae is going to be so popular, right? Like no one's going to play Burns or Spieth, and Sungjae is right in between both those guys.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the 7s.
Down in the 7Ks, some good names, but honestly, like I think this is where you start getting into the tier of guys probably not going to win, but this guy could be the difference maker, because if one of these guys shows up and finishes, top 4, top 5, like that's the difference in the tournament. So when you're making your selections here, it may seem weird where, we're putting so much stock in, is it John Rahm? Is it Scotty Scheffler? The reality is like, this is where GPPs and tournaments are won. It's with these guys. It's making the correct selections here because ownership is kind of going to be funky down in this area. But, we go all the way from KH Lee, who won 2 times in a row. I think it was at Byron Nelson, all the way up to Billy Horschel, who won the Memorial. a bunch of guys sandwiched in there. We mentioned our boy Russell Henley last year at the Sony, and he walked by Hideki. But some good names, Seb Straka, who had flashes. Like it seemed like every 2 or 3 months, Seb Straka was like at the top of leaderboards. Aaron Wise, who played very, very well last year as well too. Keegan Bradley got a win here recently. The guy that's kind of like, honestly, the odd man out to me here is kind of Adam Scott. Like I don't really know how Adam Scott got into this tournament. He's the one guy where I'm like, why is Adam Scott in this tournament?
He was in the Tour Championship, surprisringly.
I know it like blows because like I don't think he had a very good year.
He was literally the last man into the Tour Championship. I think he needed I don't remember exactly what happened, but he needed like something to happen at the next to last event, and he got into the Tour Championship.
Yeah, crazy. But
yeah, I mean, we don't remember anything from Adam Scott last year. Like, how did he even get to the Tour Championship?
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy that I'm just like scratching my head. Like Tagalo won the event with Hoagie, so here recently, but he had a very good season. Did make the Tour Championship as well too. Seamus Powers, he won twice last year, or no? He got his second win last year in a Jabroni event.
He won one event last year.
Yeah, but I mean, Horschel's probably the cream of the crop here in terms of like overall like ability, but he's been absolute dog crap at this tournament. Like this place is just not fit well with what he does. Yep. Corey Connors has typically been pretty popular, but I mean, again, Connors didn't have a very stellar year. It was steady, a bunch of T15s and T20s, and he found his way into the tournament, the Tour Championship. But I don't know, dude. Like we talked about it, this is an important range if you want to take down a tournament. Like where do you plant your flag here?
Aaron Wise. That's my guy here.
Aaron Wise. I like it.
Yeah, I like him, man. He supposedly he got a lot of he got his teeth fixed or something like that. He got a lot of dental work, so he has like a brand new smile.
I guess I didn't realize his grill was all jacked up.
Yeah, like apparently he had bad teeth, but he got like brand new like veneers, so he has like a new smile. So he's coming into 2023 with a new smile. So I don't know how that affects his golf game, but we know that Aaron Wise
idea either, but
we know what Aaron Wise's struggles are. We know his struggles are on the green, and he kind of seemed like he corrected that last year with switching to a long putter. We know he plays well at coastal tracks. This is obviously a coastal track being on an island.
Yep.
Yeah, man, I like him here. Right now, it seems like he's coming in a little chalky. But not too bad. I mean, this whole range is kind of flat, to be honest with you, which is pretty typical. I mean, in the 7K range, things do get a little bit more flat. But yeah, man, I like Aaron Wise here. I think he's a good play here. Besides Aaron Wise, like you said, Billy Horschel, probably the cream of the crop here. I mean, he's the guy that's played this course the most, but he doesn't have good history. I mean, nothing better than looks like a 25th place the last three iterations here. But yeah, I don't really ever get to Billy Horschel. We know that. I think if Billy Horschel wins, I'm usually not winning money that week just because I never really play him.
I can't stand him.
Yeah, I can't stand him either. Tagala, I think he's poised for a breakout year this year, man. I know he made the Tour Championship last year. I know he should have won. What was the event where he gagged it to Xander? Where he out of the bunker on the side. He said, the Travelers. Yeah, he should.
The Travelers.
He should have won the Travelers last year. He should have won Phoenix last year potentially too. He was there right there on Sunday in Phoenix also at the Waste Management. I think that he never got that signature win last year, but he was close multiple times. Like you said, he did win that little team event a couple of weeks ago, the QBE shootout or whatever it was with Tom Hoagie. So I like Tagala here. I mean, 7,300 looks like he's playing pretty good golf. I know he's one of those guys like he's like a hardworking little Indian boy. He's probably been practicing all summer long and all winter long in California where he lives. So I mean, he's a good play, I think. So for me, it's going to be Wise, Tagala. I will begrudgingly go back to Russell Henley. I just think he's a good player in Hawaii in general. I think he's a good tee to green player. He had a win this swing season, so he's been playing good golf. So I'll roll with those three guys in this range: Henley, Tagala, and Wise. The other guys, I'm kind of just blah on in general.
Yeah, I am planting a flag with Keegan Bradley. Keegan Bradley's probably going to be in 80-90% of my lineups. I like him a lot this week. I just think he's been playing.
What's your love with Keegan Bradley?
So if you look at his last little stretch here, like
Mm,
basically the Sanderson, the Zozo, and the CJ Cup, obviously he won the Zozo here back in October.
yeah,
But even at the CJ Cup, and going back to the Sandersons, he's been gaining with the putter. Which is rare. Like we always think of Keegan Bradley as kind of this ball striking phenom who can't putt to save his life. And that's kind of changed over the course of the last year. The approach play has still been pretty stellar. Where he's had his most problems here, basically over the last 6 months, has been around the greens. And like we talked about, that's kind of a mitigated stat here because if you're not hitting fairways and greens, you're going to finish dead last. So, I like what I'm seeing statistically from him in the short term. And then, like I said, the historical perspective of him being a ball striker, I like Keegan this week. He's pretty long. He's pretty accurate. Like I said, one of the better approach players. And the fact that the putter has been very, very good here recently. So I like it. I think he's going to kind of go under the radar here. I do think Wise and Tagala are both good plays. I think Wise will probably end up being the chalkiest guy in this
yeah,
range.
I think so too.
Yeah, and so the other guy that I'll kind of throw out there that you didn't mention just to be different, and it's a guy that I mentioned earlier in the show is Straka. Like Straka is just one of these guys who randomly pops up in events. Typically, it's kind of like Will Zalatoris. It's not the 20 to 30 under events. It's the more difficult events that he shows up and plays well. I think he won in Honda last year. So I don't know. I get these weird vibes, like Straka vibes every now and then. And so I'll kind of see how things, like, as I build out my lineups, but Keegan's a guy, like when I started researching it, he just kept floating to the top and a lot of the things that I was looking at, the metrics that I was pulling up. So I like Keegan a lot this week. I can't fault you in the Russell Henley call because he typically plays good in coastal courses. He plays good in Hawaii. Obviously, he got second place finish at Sony last year. But I can't fault you with that play. Connors is the other guy I'm kind of gonna watch and see what happens. Connors is weird, man. It seems like 1 week everybody's on him and he's the chalkiest guy, and then the next week nobody's playing him. So I'm curious to see where it goes, like as ownership develops. But I think he's going to be under owned this week, so he's another guy. You just hope to God that he can putt like that. That's like he has like a lose one stroke, not five. Like if he loses one stroke on the greens, like he probably finishes top 10.
Yeah. Straka, I mean, ever since Will Zalatoris put the dagger in him at that FedEx Cup event, he's been pretty bad.
Brutal. That was brutal. But we were all rooting for Will. Like the world was rooting for Will.
We're all rooting for Zalatoris that tournament. Straka should have won that tournament like 3 times, but ever since he lost that event, what was that? FedEx St. Jude, I think it was.
Yeah.
He's been pretty trash. Like he has not played good.
Oh yeah, he's been bad. He has been bad.
So I don't know how much I'm feeling the Straka vibes. I'll roll with you on Keegan Bradley. You sold me on him. He's high overall in your model, 10th overall in your model. His form ranks 6th overall in your model. So you sold me on Keegan Bradley. I'll play Bradley, Wise, and Tagala and Henley, and then probably fade the rest of the range. I'm not really feeling anyone else. Seamus Power, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't really.
He rates out so well, but I mean, it's all coming from the jabroni events that he wins.
Yeah, like, he plays these. Yeah, he belongs in the $7,200 range in this kind of event. So we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, no, totally agree there. We'll go ahead and drop down into the dumpster, the last tier here. And again, these guys were all winners or finished in the Tour Championship last year. Chad Ramey there at the bottom, min 6K. You want to talk about dog shit? Him and Sepp Straka have been the 2 worst guys like coming into this. They were absolutely abysmal coming in. But, there's a few names here. And again, we talk about winning, and just like with the 7Ks, if you've got the right guy picked here, and I have a feeling everyone's going to play Hoagie, and for good reason, right? Another one of those comp corollary courses. And again, from a design perspective, length, it makes no sense. But when we look at the leaderboards, the kinds of guys that float to the top, Hoagie's another guy that won at Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is one of those tournaments where, again, Jordan Spieth, throw out the names. So I think a lot of people are going to be on Hoagie. I guess if I was to circle on 2 that I would play, and it would totally be based off of construction. Sevenson was pretty good tee to green all year. And then Stallings, like both guys, Stallings made it to the Tour Championship. So I think both of those guys, just from like a high floor, low ceiling perspective, I like a lot. Other than that, like I'm done with Luke List until I actually see something happen. Like you used to give me shit because I'd pick him. I'd be like, yeah, what about Luke List? I'm gonna bet on Luke List this week, and then he'd gain 9 strokes tee to green and lose 15 on the greens and miss the cut. And so until I see something other than that, Luke List, like maybe when we go back to Farmers, I'll play Luke List again, but I'm not gonna go anywhere near him.
Yeah, Tom Hoagie does look like he's coming in chalkiest in this range with good reason. I mean, you can see it in your model right here. He's 16th overall in your model, and he's priced 6,500. Seems like pretty good value. I don't think I could get away from playing him to round out my lineups. Like rounding out your lineup at 6,500 with Tom Hoagie is a pretty solid lineup, I think. So I don't mind him. The chalk does scare me a little bit. I like Trey Mullinax in this range, 6,200. I think that's a good price for him.
Yep.
He won some jabroni event last year. I don't remember what he won, but he was playing good golf last year, man. He won an event. He had a couple top 5 finishes, a couple top 10 finishes at a course where he can bomb his driver out. He's one of the longest players on tour, where he can bomb his driver out in the middle of the fairway and hit the fairway. He just has to, be good with his wedges and short game. I think 6,200 is a good price for him. I will definitely play him over Luke List at 6,200. That's not even a question.
Absolutely.
So for me, I like Mullinax. I like Hoagie. Svensson's a nice call. He won his last time out on PGA Tour, which was a few weeks ago. So that was good to see him get his first win on tour. Scott Stallings is somebody I play a lot. I don't mind the Stallings call. But yeah, I think my favorite plays here are going to be Hoagie and Mullinax, and then just kind of sprinkle the other guys in.
Yeah, I pulled up Molinix where you're talking about, him, and the big thing to me when I look back, like he's been pretty rock solid on approach, he's gained in 8 of his last 9 tournaments, and the one that he lost 0.0 strokes on approach. So, that is the kind of thing you like to see, is that he continues to gain regardless of the field strength that he's playing in. The guy continually gains on approach. His last outing, which was the Houston Open, he gained almost 5 strokes putting, so he can have these streaky weeks. And then again, where he's consistently terrible is around the greens and putting. And putting can be one of those things. If you get a spike week out of Trey Mullinax where, he putts and makes, I don't know, half of the putts that he hits, right? Like, and he's putting, to your point, at like whatever tournament like average is, like he's going to have a good week because the approach play, the off the tee game, and these are big, huge, wide fairways. He's not the most accurate driver, but again, that's going to be mitigated here. And again, around the green, you've mentioned it multiple times, like that is his weakest point, and it is the least statistically aligned with success at this tournament. So I love the Mullinax call. And I think you and I are aligned on both Stallings and Hoagie, and then Svensson as well. That's going to do it for the DFS portion. But Rick, new segment on the betting odds. We usually talk about our bets here. With a small field, we can get all of the guys on one slide here. So taking a look at the odds, we mentioned, Rahm and Scheffler are both below 10-1. Cantlay, who I think opened at like 14 or 15, is all the way down to 10. Justin Thomas, I feel like at 11, even though it's not bettable for me, there's some value in that number at 11-1. Tony Finau, I think that 18 is now gone. Like I haven't seen anything higher than 14. But the guys for me that I really like this week from a betting perspective are all, no big surprise, Hovland, Morikawa. I do like Spieth, but I think that number is going to grow over the course of the week. So the bets that I have placed are both on Hovland and Morikawa. The other guy that I do find interesting from a betting perspective is Homa at 40. I just think, like we mentioned, we were going through him in the 7 or 8Ks, wherever it was priced. He's one of those guys when he's in contention, like he'll go bell to bell with whoever the guy is there. Kind of like, we've seen Sam Burns done from time to time, where it's like, it doesn't matter if it's him versus John Rahm down the stretch. He's not going to wilt. So those are the 2 bets that are made, Hovland and Morikawa. Hovland is the other one. I think that number is going to grow. And then Spieth, I'll have an eye on as well, too. I think that number is going to grow. But I think I'm probably going to have 4 bets this week, nothing from beyond 50. Like I can't see betting Corey Connors or Brian Harman or any of those guys to win. I think Harman's a good, like, top 5, top 10 bet, good DFS play to your point, but betting wise, no. So Hovland Morikawa for me. I'll have eyes on Spieth and Homa.
Okay. I will definitely have Tony Finau on my card. I think he's going to win this week. He would be my one and done pick this week. I'm seeing, I mean, I'm still getting like a 17 or 16 on him, so I don't mind that number at all. So I like Tony Finau from the top of the board. From the middle of the board, I really like Tom Kim. I like that number 30-1. I think he is very suitable to beat this field. So I like that value at 30-1. I also like Aaron Wise at 40-1. The funny thing about DFS is you see Aaron Wise at 7,200 and Brian Harman at
win,
and Brian Harman who's like way price at 8,000, who's 10 points shorter than him or longer than him. It's surprising to see that. So that tells you what Vegas thinks about this tournament. So that tells me that Aaron Wise is a good play at this in the 7K range. So definitely like Aaron Wise 40-1, Brian Harman 51. Those are nice plays. Long shots, I'm probably not going to get there either. I mean, one thing we learned last year, it was a bad year for long shots. There was a lot of chalk that won last year. I don't know if that's going to turn around this year or not, but I don't see it happening in this field. I might get into more. I never really do it, but I might get into more of these top 20, top 10 kind of bets and stuff like that. And if I was going to pick somebody back there, it'd probably be like Mullinax or Tom Hoagie. I like those calls for top 10, top 20. But for winners, I'm going to roll with like Finau, Tom Kim, Aaron Wise, Brian Harman. Like those are going to be like my card. Obviously, we will tweet it out. We will put it in Discord. We didn't mention it at the top of the show, but we do have a free Discord. Please join it. The link's in the description. I put out a little Wednesday notes and tidbits on Wednesday before the tournament starts to talk about ownership and my pick to win and my betting card and stuff like that. So put that out for free. So it's just something for you guys to know what I'm on that week. But yeah, join our Discord. We love talking golf. If you want to talk Bills, we talk Bills. If you want to talk football in general, we talk NFL betting, NFL fantasy football, everything you want. Join the Discord and we'll be pretty active in there throughout the week.
Yeah, absolutely. The Discord is probably the best tool. We've got some pretty active guys that are constantly asking questions to you and I about plays, weather, those kinds of things. And it's funny because we don't always agree on stuff, or probably more accurately stated, sometimes I give the complete wrong forecast, like on wind and weather, and you're like, that is absolutely not right. And you correct me, which is good for the people that are out there that are doing that.
Yeah, the tournament's in Hawaii, and Tony's over here looking at the forecast for Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm like, dude, the tournament's in Hawaii. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we should mention before we go here the weather, which has basically it's the course's only defense, right? Like if it gets windy, then that's the only way this thing's not going to be like just an absolute just thrashing by the guys that are in this tournament. The one year that we did have wind, and it was after a slight redesign of the course, especially on the greens. Justin Thomas won it at like 14 under, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any massive wind this week. Like there might be gusts up to like 18, 20 on Thursday and Friday, but over the course of the weekend, it's just supposed to be picture perfect. So my best guess is that wind is not going to be a factor this week.
Yeah, I looked at the forecast a little bit. I mean, it doesn't affect DFS lineups because the guys tee off like so like compact together. So it's not like you don't really get like a wave advantage like we will get later in the year. But I mean, it's something to pay attention to, and for something that's not going to be that windy, I mean, it could affect your ability to your decisions or whatever. But this week I don't think the weather is going to be that impactful. It's sunny, beautiful Hawaii. It's warm and beautiful. So I think these guys are going to play nice resort golf at Kapalua. Is it Kapalua? Yeah, it's Kapalua. And tear this course apart. But before we go, this is the first show of the year. So Tony, give me your early Masters prediction right now. Let's go.
Oh God, early Masters prediction. Well, I am glad that the live guys are going to play. So that's one thing that I think we all thought was going to happen is they just say, hey, look, if you're in, you're in. And the thing that's going to be interesting is there's been a few of the holes that have been redesigned to be lengthened or to basically reroute the course. So that is going to have an impact for guys. My early lean.
Did you see 13? Like, did you see what they did to 13 at Augusta? That's gonna be that hole's not going to be. I don't know if that hole's going to be reachable in 2 anymore. They backed that tee box up so much. Like it's going to be tough for those guys to go for that green in 2. So that's definitely going to make the back nine more exciting and more challenging coming in.
Yeah, I think basically because of the length and very similar to this course, like they're big wide fairways in Augusta. There's very uneven plays, like in terms of like lies. To be honest with you, my odds on favorite to win is a guy who's not even on the PGA Tour. That's Cam Smith. I just think Cam Smith, in my mind, he is the best player on the planet right now. And I just think that he is due for a statement win. Obviously, he won the Open Championship last
Yeah.
year, but I think if I was to pick anybody, the world is on Rory, rightfully so. But in my mind, it would be Cam Smith 1 and probably John Rahm 2.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Yeah, man, I'd love to see Rory finally get it done. I mean, he's been T2s multiple times, and he had that sick hole out in the bunker on the 72nd hole last year. He was never really in contention to win, but it'd be nice to see him get the job done and finally get that grand slam. It's been a long time since Rory's won a major championship, so it'd be nice to see him get back in the winner's circle. If we're not going to go with the chalk Rory decision there, I don't know, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Scheffler repeated. I mean, he obviously tore that course apart last year. He knows it pretty well. But I like your Cam Smith call. I think he's going to be, because he's going to be kind of out of sight, out of mind playing on Live. He might be a little sneaky, like low owned or whatever, but he's still one of the best players in the world, and he's going to be well deserved to be in the hunt on Sunday. I think if he's there. So yeah, I like that. I like that call.
Did you watch him in the Australian tournament that he won here recently?
No.
So that it was basically a European event, right? So he played in that, and he didn't run away with it, but he won in like dominating fashion. And dude, he looked so good, and he just looked so comfortable in the moment. It's his home country. I believe he has won that tournament before, but he just looked fantastic, dude. And I'm just like, man, this guy is he is in his prime, and he's firing on all cylinders. And I think playing in the Live events, in these mitigated fields, I think he's going to end up winning. I think the Live guys have like 12 events this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he won like 3 of them.
I'm pretty sad he went to Live, to be honest. Like, now that I think back
absolutely.
Now that I think about it, like, he's probably the only guy that went to Live that I'm just like, damn, I kind of wish he was still on the PGA Tour. I feel like
Neiman as well for me. I really like
Neiman too. I agree with that. Like, those are the two guys. I mean, I had a nice ticket on Neiman last year at the Genesis, so I like betting on Joaquin Neiman. So yeah, those two guys, I'm pretty sad that they left. And who knows? I mean, we obviously don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I think at some point in the future, while these guys are still in their prime, Live is going to fizzle out, and they're going to come back to the PGA Tour, and hopefully that's sooner than later. We'll see.
Well, I hope it happens soon. I think that's going to do it for us, Rick.
Yep.
Kids can follow you on Twitter and Instagram at Riku Mukherjee. You can follow me at the 5 of 6 Apologist. Good luck to everybody this week. Rick, glad to have you back, man. Good to be back doing golf content. And next week we got the Sony, but best of luck to you. We will put out on Twitter and on Discord our bets for the week once those are locked in, probably on Wednesday. But good luck to everybody out there, and we'll talk to you next week.
Good. Later, guys.